Welcome back. I'm Gary Parr, and you are listening to Fiber Talk, the twice-weekly podcast for the needlework artist. And this week we have with us from the Fire Poppies, what is it? Needlework Boutique. I love that.
Yes.
Susan Winter. Hi, Susan.
Hey, Gary.
Yes, I love the name, the Needlework Boutique. So we're going to explore that a little bit, and I love doing these kinds of shows because it's always interesting to me how new shops get started and what's behind them. So anxious to get this one going. So the question that everybody's going to have is, see, your shop is not named Stitching This or Needles and Threads shop or anything like that. Fire Poppies. Where's that come from?
So there is a piece that I purchased. It was a cross-stitch chart that I got from Gecko Rouge a number of years ago before she did kits only. And it was called Fire Poppies. And I'm kind of that, industrial wood, abstract kind of girl. And this was very much that look. And I have a bit of a full coverage problem. So anything full coverage takes a little while, and I'm still not finished with it.
Okay.
But,
okay. That was question two. That was question two.
Yeah. School, I decided I needed to get a degree. So that was 4 years. And my daughter got married. So there was all these things. So I have started back on it. But it, even years ago, for this even became a thought to have a shop. I remember thinking that would be a cool name for a shop. And I loved the little swirls in the Fire Poppies flowers she had on there. So when we decided to do this, I didn't even have to think twice. I knew exactly what we were going to call it. And part of the reason I didn't put the word stitchery or thread or anything else in there is because I wanted to be able to do more with this later. If we decided to go into distribution or licensing art or anything else, I didn't want to limit the name to where it just sounded like it was a shop.
Yeah. Well, and it's certainly a name that people will remember. That's it's not at all generic. So that's great. Yeah. Now I looked up that Fire Poppies design. That's quite a design, and it looks like
cool?
it looks like it's used other places for other art.
So the designer, Mad Art, and I think it's Madeline, I think is her name. She licensed her art to the folks at Gecko Rouge, and then eventually they lost the licensing to it, so you can't get the chart anymore. But so yeah, she has some amazing art out there that I would just love to own. Yeah, it's beautiful stuff.
Yeah, it really is very creative. Yes, yeah, and original. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now you made the mistake. You said you're a full coverage addict.
Yeah.
Now, I have never had a chance to talk to a full coverage addict, and I have the utmost respect for you guys who can page after page after page of confetti and solid cross stitches. What is it that gets you pumped up about doing that?
So I'm going to back up just a bit. My first piece that I ever did of counted was Rainbow Row by Barbara and Cheryl back in like 87, 88. And I didn't really, we were looking for a picture to put into a particular part of the house, and I had just kind of dabbled in like stamped, cross stitch. And so I started off with this big piece, and just kind of my second piece that I bought and didn't end up really finishing until many years later, because the Rainbow Row was on Ada. And then I saw Teresa Wensler's carousel, and I was like, oh, that's pretty. I want to do that too, and bought the linen. And the lady at the shop was like, are you sure? Do you she thought I was crazy when I was like, yeah, I want to do the Rainbow Row up there. She goes, do you know how to do this? I went, well, it's just X's, right? Well, there's no knots, right? Well, no. So she had to show me how to do this on the fly. So I never really did anything small. I always was attracted to stuff that really had this art look to it that you would, hang on your walls.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I actually did something small was one of the Hinzite charts. It was pumpkins. And I remember I did it in a weekend, and I was sitting on the couch next to my husband. And I went, oh my God, you can finish something in a weekend. He just shook his head at me. So I've tried to branch off into smaller things, but, I have my fair share of Hades and Scarlet Quinces and Mystic Stitches hanging in my stash.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure that they're easily as collectible as samplers or anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a hard time with repetition. So I've never been super drawn to samplers, but I'm telling you, some of these reproductions ones that are coming out, the colors are amazing, and I think I might give it a shot.
All right, fair warning, be careful. It can be just nasty addicting.
Like I need something else.
Yeah. So when you do these full coverage things, I mean, you know going in they're going to take you forever. What keeps you motivated? Is it to finish a page? Is it that it just slowly unveils, the image slowly unveils for you and it's fun to watch that happen? What is the motivation?
Yeah, part of it is what you said about, it just kind of slowly unveils. A lot of the pieces that I've done, and I haven't done a ton of them just because over the years, my background is restaurant management. So before I got into the corporate world and then decided to leave that to do the shop, I never really had a lot of time to stitch. So it would kind of go in spurts. So I'd never really found myself getting burnt out on anything that was full coverage because I never got hours and hours and hours, days on end to work on it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's kind of something magical about watching this image take shape and watching it fill in. In general, before Fire Poppies, which is a ridiculously amount of confetti in this, to the point you want to stab your eyes out, but I love it anyway. I could finish a full, a 8.5 by 11 page in about 35 or 40 hours for most pieces. This one is taking an average of about 75 hours a page.
Holy smokes. Per page?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Thank God it's 6 full pages and 2 1/3 pages, and I've got 2.5 pages left. So
you can see the end.
Yeah.
Now, do you do the whole parking thing?
No, I have not tried parking, but I do want to give it a shot because I had started even before I found Fire Poppies. It's a Scarlet Quince piece. It's the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. It's based on a Grant Wood painting, and it is absolutely ginormous. And it's very dark and everything's blended threads. And the girls that I stitch with started calling it my boyfriend, Paul. They go, "Have you worked with a boyfriend lately?" I go, "No, got to spend time with husband." So I had always been of the persuasion that, if I'm doing full coverage, I'm not spending money on linen, I'm just going to do Ada. And it was calling for like an 18 count, and just doing regular stitch, it's so many color changes. It's just getting hard to really keep a decent tension on there. So I thought, I'm only about 7 pages of the 50 something pages in. So I think I might see what parking does. I know. Go ahead, laugh.
50 pages?
50 pages.
That's like a blanket. That's got to be like bed cover size.
Yeah, it's close. Yeah, it's close. And I'm like only 5'2", so I could probably make it work that way. But
holy smokes. Now, when you do that, little monsters like that, the only practical way, I assume, is to just have a hoop, right?
No, I use like an 11 by 17 Q-snap, and I have a stand.
Oh, okay.
Back when they were, I don't know if they're still available or not. I think they are, but the Needlework System 4 stand I had bought with the Q-snap adapter, and it's not great to go traveling with. Or Lowry's much better for that, but yeah. So that's what I do. We have a room set up in the back. My husband can play video games or watch TV, and I can sit and stitch when we have time together. So.
Oh, well, that's nice. That's nice to have that.
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter's 30, so there's no kids at home.
Yeah. That empty nesting is kind of nice, isn't it?
It is.
Kind of real nice. Yep. Yeah, we were lamenting today about how there aren't any kids around, and I thought, yeah, I miss them, but nah, it's okay.
Yep.
It's okay. Yep. So when did you start stitching? Long ago, or?
Well, I'm almost 54, so my husband and I were engaged back in like 86, and he was out doing boot camp to join the Air Force Reserve, and we were, a couple months away from the wedding, and being the lovesick kids that we were, we spent every waking moment together. So when he wasn't around, I had nothing to do. So back before there were Michaels and AC Moores and all that, there was, kind of that, they sold pottery and just kind of all house type stuff. And I wandered in looking for something to do and found these little towels that I don't even think you could wipe your hands with, but they were pink, blue, and yellow, and there was little flowers you would stitch on them. Uh-huh. And I took it home and figured it out. And then after that, kind of, once we got married, I was like, well, we'll have kids one day. And so I was like, stamped baby blankets. And I did those when he didn't know I was doing them with the intent of, finishing that. And that never happened. They never got bound. And then into Rainbow Row we went. So.
Oh, okay. All right. I wonder how many people that happened to, where they just walked into a store and saw something and it caught their eye. I bet there's a lot of them.
I think so. And I didn't know that, we discovered the needlework shop that was here at the time, because when we were looking, we wanted to put a actual picture of Rainbow Row, and it actually was inset in the fireplace that we didn't use. And my husband's like, well, maybe you could cross stitch one. I was like, I don't even know if they make that. Let's find out. So when we did, and he was so good about this, and thank God he is still to this day, that when we got home, we'd purchased all this floss and the fabric and the chart, and we get home and he's helping me bobbinate it. And Ooh. Then so then he wanted to help. So he would literally hold the chart and he'd say, okay, you're going to go 3 stitches this way. All right. And then you're going to go cat, and he would read it off to me and tell me where to stitch.
Wow.
And that lasted, it lasted for about a week and a half. And then we went, this is just going slow. So he stopped, but he's always been really behind me on this.
Well, that's fantastic to have that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Especially running a business now. It's good to somebody who appreciates.
When people walk in the shop and they go, this is so amazing. I'm like, yeah, you need to find my husband and just smother him with hugs and kisses, because it would not exist if he had not done everything I asked him to do. There were plenty of times I go, I really kind of want this to do this. He'd go, yeah, Susan, physics doesn't work like that. And I go, can you figure out how to make it anyway?
Yeah. So tell me about how you get the business started. Now, you've been open since what?
August
fall?
19th in the physical shop. Yes.
Yeah. August of last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're not quite 6 months yet.
And did you have a kind of a pre-store start from the home, or how did that work?
So this whole thought process started really in May of 18, when I was talking to a friend of ours who was a business coach. My husband and I were chatting with him, and he was talking about businesses he was helping, and I blurted out, still don't know how to this day that it came out of my mouth, and said, well, then you need to help me open my cross stitch store. And he went, okay. And I went, wait, what? I'm sorry, what? And I looked at my husband, who's, I handle the finances, and he's like, okay, if you think we're good, we're good. And I went, I'm sorry, who are you? So yeah, I hired my friend as my business coach, and we went from there. Just kind of didn't really incorporate the business, or not incorporate, but set up the LLC until like August of 18. And then I had a corporate job at the point. So we decided we would experiment to see if we could live on his income, because that was, kind of important.
Yeah.
And so we tried that for several months. And what I did is I just took my income and started buying inventory. And then when I had enough inventory to at least kind of and I had to figure out, web design, I was doing Squarespace and figuring out who would talk to who, and, shopping carts and all that mess.
Right.
So we launched the online shop literally like December 18th of 18. And then just kind of said, okay, do I even like this? Do I want to deal with sales taxes? How is this feeling? How are we doing financially? And then I went to market, and that really kind of solidified me that, nope, I want a brick and mortar. Because up to that point, it was kind of like saying, I want to go to Hawaii. I want to go to Hawaii one day. And it's always a nice thought until you buy the plane ticket. And so I just kind of had to decide whether I was going to buy that plane ticket. So yeah, I had to kind of keep things quiet at work because, until I found a place to lease and kind of signed the dotted line, I didn't want to jeopardize my job.
Right, right.
But yeah, so we found something in March and had to wait until the end of May for it to come available, and got in there and started hammering and nailing and painting.
So when you were ready to open the store, you already had a good inventory then.
I had a reasonable amount. I was surprised at how much more I kind of needed to get. So yeah. And we had been really fortunate. We were buying fixtures from places that were going out of business and, from estate sales. And I would buy something and not even know if I could even use it because we didn't even know where the space was. And we would just, store it at the house. So
right.
God bless my husband again for putting up with all that. But yeah, I mean, I scored 3 Alex and Ani beautiful jewelry cases from a store that was going out of business in the mall.
Oh.
So, we've made do with what we had, and then as we've kind of moved things around here and there.
Now, when you blurted that out, that you were going to start a cross-stitch store, did you have at least a framework in your mind for what the business would look like and what you would sell, basically?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So you really did just...
We had a shop in Summerville in the Charleston area years ago, and she's still a friend of mine, but they closed down, and this was, I want to say, early to mid 2000s. So, we would get together with a group of us once a month at the Panera, the local Panera, and stitch. And we all just kept going, God, we need a shop. We would drive a few hours to Rock Hill a couple times a year, and Peggy is wonderful up there, but at the Stitch and Frame. But, yeah, we just thought we needed one. I thought, you know what? Why not me? Why not? Mm-hmm. So, I had management background with restaurants. I was with Arby's Roast Beef on and off for about 18 years, and I was a corporate trainer for McAllister's Deli. And so I knew I knew how to manage people and inventory and all of that. It was all the payroll and all that fun stuff that was, has been a learning curve and
right.
all the web stuff.
Well, that's a huge advantage to have that business background, because I think for a lot of people who have it as a hobby and say, hey, I ought to start a business, I think it's a real shock to realize how much time the business aspect takes up and takes away from your stitching and hobby time. And so you went into it at least with your eyes open for that.
Yes. And a matter of fact, just kind of the timing of everything was nice, because when I left the restaurant business back in 2007, I was an area training manager, and I was working, 60 plus hours a week, all evenings and weekends and holidays. And my husband had always had a job where he was always Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Oh. So we had years of kind of learning not to see each other much. So when I went to work, actually the same company he was at, we had about 12 years of getting up in the morning together, eating breakfast together, riding work together, eating lunch together, riding home together, eating dinner together, having every weekend off together. So we will be fine when we both retire eventually, because we have that time together nailed down.
Right.
But so we had, a really frank conversation of, I knew I wanted to be open in the evenings, and, people look at us like we're a little crazy at first, but then they're grateful later, because we are open from 10 to 8 Monday through Friday, mm-hmm. and we're open from 9 to 7 on Saturday and 12 to 5 on Sunday. But I wanted to make sure we were accessible to everybody, and we'll evaluate that in a few more months and see if we really need to have those hours every day, and we'll figure it out. But yeah. Rick knows my work ethic, and I told him, I said, this is going to go back to evenings and weekends and, 50-hour plus a week. Are you okay with that? He was like, absolutely. So yeah, we knew what that life was like, and we were eyes wide open kind of going back into it. But I will tell you, this is way easier than running a restaurant.
Yeah,
from a physical standpoint. I'm like, 11-hour day is a piece of cake.
Yep. Well, that's, back in my aquarium days, I remember there was, why this sticks in my head, I don't know. But there was a reading in an aquarium magazine, and it was editorial that was way out of place because it was a magazine for hobbyists. but it was a list of 10 ways to make sure that your aquarium store fails. And and item number 1 was be closed when people can come to your shop. And yeah, it's always stuck with me because aquarium stores would do that a lot. They would not be open in the evening, and shocker, your customers have to work.
Right.
And so then you ended up going in on Saturday or Sunday, and then of course half of them would be closed on Sunday, and they'd worked a full week. Well, but your customers are available in the evenings and on weekends, and so then that was one of those things that I often thought about for retail business. It sticks in my head is whatever your hours are, they should not be convenient for you. They need to be convenient for the customer. And I'm sure you're going to at some point say we really don't need to be open until 8 every night of the week, but it's got to be a plus, I would think.
Yeah, it's been, it's growing. And of course, I needed to have staff to pull this off.
Right.
And that's, at this point, I'm investing in that time period right now. Because I want to make sure we give great service, and I want to have some days off, and, so yeah, it's been, and staff is good to have around. There is a different energy when they are in the shop with me versus I'm by myself. Mm-hmm. And so I love having somebody else there with me because it just gets me energized as well.
Yeah.
Which makes a difference in the service.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Sure.
It just feels different.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and you get ideas bounced off each other, and I'm sure there are a lot of pluses to that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So then you open this shop. Now you have what at least I believe to be the successful formula, in that it's not here's a bunch of threads, linen, and needles, come in and buy them, but you seem to be working really hard to have a real steady stream of events of one kind or another, so that it becomes, you're developing, at least in my view, a stitching community as much as you are a retail business.
Yes, and that was ultra important to me. So yeah, really, I guess I did have an idea of what I wanted the space to be. For me, the shop supports the community space, because we all have such a good time when we get together and stitch. Mm-hmm. And we all learn from each other, and we see what else is out there. And, it's a form of even just business networking. Somebody might need a lawyer, and hey, guess what? Your stitching friend over here is a lawyer.
Right.
So yeah, the room is always open. And we had thought about if we were going to be closed in some evenings, if I was going to have events in the evenings, well, then I might as well be open. If I'm going to have stitching events, why close if I can not have to? Everybody's situation is different. So yeah, we are kind of starting off, with these theme stitch-ins that we'll have every month, whether it's, people who love to do Christmas stuff, or right now it's Harry Potter, we had our first one. It was great. And then there's all these Facebook groups out there that are doing stitch-alongs, and, there's the Ann Roberts one with Hands Across the Sea, and Jen Lee with 24 Hours of Cross Stitch. So we want to help promote that. So, well, let's have our pajama party in the same time that those quarterly challenges are going on. So eventually, yeah, I'd like to get to where we have a retreat in Charleston that we're putting on, and maybe get some designers to come down and teach classes. But I'm one of those people that I want to do it well. And I'd rather not just jump off and go, yeah, let's do this. I want to make sure I've got it figured out, that we do a good job of presenting it, and that it's carried off well. So if that means something doesn't happen the rest of this year with that, I'm okay. Yeah. I'd like to get something going, but I don't want to do it at the expense of just to have it.
Right. Well, and you have, just from the pictures, an ideal space with that room. I mean, that looks like a really large room where you just have chairs around the perimeter and a big TV over a mantle, and it just looks like a really inviting place for people to just come in and camp out for the day.
Yeah, I tell you what, IKEA is my friend. They have some amazingly comfortable furniture at reasonable prices. So yeah, the space before I took it over was a real estate agent had it, and she was subleasing to a granite company. So they had all of these countertops and different samples of granite in this beautiful entertainment center back there with cabinetry. So when we went in, the landlord was like, you can move whatever you want to around, because some of the cabinetry was taking up a lot of floor space. So we moved some of it out into our what we call our stock room, but it's really just kind of a work area, because those cabinets actually have a lot of stock in it. And then, so yeah, it was great for the TV. We moved a fridge in there. We've got, and I heard Vonna talking the other night, she was surprised we had a sewing machine. So there's like a nice granite desk area there. We popped a sewing machine in because, yeah, a lot of people don't have a sewing machine, and they might have rudimentary skills, or we can help them, and they just want to finish off their pillow, or they just need to sew an edge. And, you know, why, if we can help people learn how to do some little smalls, that don't have to be framed, but they're afraid to do them because they don't know how to finish them up, then I'd love to help somebody with that.
Right.
And save them some money from having us do it. I mean, I'd rather teach you to fish.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You know, I'm a classic example. I own a sewing machine, and basically I own it to do zigzag stitch on linen. And it's just ridiculous. But, I wanted to be able to do it when I wanted to be able to do it. And, I figured over the course of time, you know, a relatively cheap sewing machine would be convenient for me, but, you know, in the big picture, it's ridiculous. And to be able to go into a shop like yours and just sew the edge on and be done with it would be fantastic. But, yeah. And so you have a refrigerator. I mean, it sounds like you have food possibilities too when you have these events then.
Yeah, we always keep the fridge stocked with bottled water. We usually have some tea in there. I've always got, you know, some cookies, Reese Pieces, that kind of stuff. There's a Keurig machine. We've got hot chocolate. So there's stuff I just kind of provide whoever wants to come back there, and hang out. And then when we have some of the more structured stuff, folks will bring things. When we had our Super Bowl party, you know, I went ahead and got some wings and pizza and chips and dip, and because in reality, we're so new at a lot of this, I have no idea who's going to show up, if anybody.
Right.
So it's just kind of a shot, and well, if somebody shows up, great. If not, we just won't do it next year.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
You've
had people show up though.
Yeah. There was probably 6 or 7 of us for the game, and I'm telling you what, I don't watch football. I can follow it. It's fine. But I was very impressed with the girls that were in there, hooting and hollering and fussing at the referees. They knew the game. I was like, I'll just watch the replays because that's what they're going to show me, the good stuff anyway.
Right. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Now the old crowd that you were driving 3 hours to a shop, I assume that they are regulars. Yes.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
And Charleston's it's a tourist destination to begin with. So we get a lot of folks that are coming in, and they're like, hey, you know, we came down from Canada, Hilton Head to stay, and we drove up here to see the shop. And then we've got, you know, the regulars, and that group is starting to build. We have not done any official advertising in the Charleston area to let people know who are locals that were there. It's really just been social media and kind of word of mouth at this point.
Yeah. All right. I got to know this pajama party, 24 hours of cross stitch. I mean, not for me, but what is I mean, you have women actually come in pajamas and stay there for 24 hours?
Some stay. So I mentioned earlier, there's the Facebook group, 24 Hours of Cross Stitch. And so they have quarterly challenges where over a particular weekend, they'd like you to get 24 hours of stitching in. It doesn't have to be consecutive. It could be 8-hour days over. But the big challenge is to kind of do 24 hours in a row. And 2 of my stitching friends do that. And they were like, we've got to do it at the shop. I was like, absolutely. So I got the dates from Jen Lee with that particular Facebook group. And we start at 7 p.m. officially on that Friday. And then it goes until, and we close at 7 on Saturday. So it works out really well. And if people want to come for 2 hours and just be kind of a pajama party part of it, fantastic. If you want to stay all night and into the next day, it doesn't matter. Just come out and stitch and be comfy. And yeah, we watch movies and, talk, and you'd be surprised. You really don't get as tired as you think you would. And I end up working. So I work from like 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. the next day.
Right.
I just change clothes the next morning and, brush my teeth and
move on. Yeah.
Fix the makeup. Yeah.
But that's fantastic, though. I mean, if that's what you want to do. I mean, that sounds like just a fun event and really a getaway without having to pay for hotels and all kinds of things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't need a bed. You just need an IKEA chair to sit in.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. And then another thing on your list, what's boys' night? Got to know about that.
So this will be the inaugural one coming up in March. We're going to do those once a quarter as well. We've started to have a reasonable number of male stitchers coming in the door.
All right.
So I thought, why not have something and see if we can get it rolling to where it's just the guys stitching, and no girls allowed. And so they can have, they don't have to listen to the girl talk, and yet still come to a stitch-in. So we'll see how that goes.
Hey, that's terrific. Yeah. Well, when I did one at the attic back in January, there was 5 or 6 of us. We had a great time.
Yeah.
Yep. No women. And yeah, somebody did comment. Yeah, it's a lot quieter here than a guy who would show up for the regular stitch days. This is a lot quieter. But it was weird because I expected I didn't know what to expect. No, I can't say I expected because I really didn't know what to expect. But there was conversation, but it wasn't endless. There were long periods of silence, and everybody was stitching. Mm-hmm. And it was. I've told this before. One of the guys toward the end of the session said, it's weird, but we've been here all this time, and nobody has sworn. There's not been a swear word. And one of the other guys says, that's just because I didn't want you to know that I made a mistake. But it was fun, and it was a different dynamic. So I'm anxious to see how yours works out, especially if you have already some regular customers who are male. That's terrific.
Yeah, I was excited to see it. Very excited to see it.
Well,
and they're allowed to swear. It's okay. I swear.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So that's permitted.
The stitching room is, everybody kind of makes sure everybody's good with it. But yeah, it's kind of whatever happens there is okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. And that's kind of a neat thing too, because I think we're starting to see more men, at least at my perception, more men stitching. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what the dynamic is there. I know for me, I've been stitching for a long time. I just didn't really let anybody know, and then I just got old enough. I just didn't care what they thought anymore. So big deal, right. But there just seems to be a lot more, and I think there are. Can I say? I think I can say that there are a lot of designs that are more appealing to men than they would be, say, 5 or 10 years ago. Things that just are more interesting to stitch, mm-hmm. and I think society is just more accepting of that than it was.
Yes,
which helps immensely, because I met with my dad. He lives in Michigan, and saw him not too long ago, and he was with a friend who knew that I was doing aquarium podcasts, and he asked me, he says, "Are you still doing those?" I said, "No." I said, "I started this needlework podcast," and my dad was just sitting there kind of zoned out. He perked right up. He said, "Sewing?" And I said, "No, it's not sewing, Dad, but just, move on," because he was just going to get all worked up over it, and it's like, just never mind. But for most men these days, I don't think you get that reaction, and it's nice because it's a great hobby for everyone. I enjoy it. I don't care.
Yeah, it's a beautiful form of creating art. I'm not a designer. I don't see the end product in my head, but I love taking somebody else's work and making it come alive.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And screwing it up on occasion.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And there's some good men designers, good male designers. I'm a big fan of Ronnie Rowe's work. You know, and especially, you know, he's got some at Nashville, some new pen and ink things I think are just fantastic. And he just has a real eye for that kind of thing, for buildings and you know, he's retired, worked in the Defense Department or something, I forget, but yeah, and he just enjoys it, and he has a wife who supports him, and that's it's fantastic. And that's the thing that I think is a real plus with your husband. Clearly, he's behind you 100% and supporting you. That makes a big difference.
It does. I don't ever have to worry about how he's feeling about it.
Yeah.
I just, you know,
when the hours get long.
Yeah. And I do make sure that, you know, I don't miss events that we would normally be going to. If a friend is having, you know, a dinner party, I make sure I'm off for it so that there isn't any animosity that could potentially develop. You know, right. I don't want that. This shouldn't take away from my life. It should be adding to it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So talk about what it is you offer. It's not just cross stitch, and then this boutique name, which creates a different connotation. Sure.
So, you know, I'm a cross stitcher. That's what I primarily know. I've, you know, taken some classes in hardanger here and there, and you know, I can do other stitches when need be. But we have there's a couple of several active guilds in the area, sampler guilds and the needlepoint guild and the EGA guild. And so I've met with all of them to kind of see what did they want and what do they need? Because you know, I want this to be what they want. And I did want it to be a needlework boutique shop, versus just cross stitch. So I don't know needlepoint. There is a beautiful painted canvas shop down in downtown Charleston, and she does very well with that market. So I got the feedback that they were looking for counted canvas needlepoint, that they couldn't get charts anywhere. They could get a little bit of fabric. Mm-hmm. So we've started to carry that. I was like, you tell me the designers and I'll start, you know, see what I can get. So we've got that going on and building that piece of it and building the threads that go with it. One of the things we'd lucked into back in June.
That's a beast right there, isn't it?
Yeah. So one of the things I was very fortunate to have happen, and it was not fortunate for the folks of Columbia, because the needler in Columbia, Susan and her mother retired, and so they closed down, and I kind of found out about it late, but contacted her, and she still had some inventory. So I basically bought her threads and beads off of her. So it gave me a bit of a base to start with. So I had some Rainbow Gallery and some Karen, but it wasn't the full line of anything. So I've been kind of adding, and as people need stuff, I buy a few extra of that to kind of keep going.
Right.
So, and the customers have been very supportive who do that. They're like, no, order it. I'm not starting it right now anyway. You know, we're good. Mm-hmm. So special orders have been fantastic. So we've started to have people walk in and ask, do we have surface embroidery? And I know nothing about surface embroidery. But one of the EGA members who's been, you know, teaching and doing stuff with them for 30 plus years came in and said, listen, I want to teach a thread painting class for you.
Oh.
And she said, you know, because I know you said you're having some interest in this, and let's just kind of gauge it. So I've got the muslin in, I've got the, you know, that'll be April 4th. And so, yeah, if that's what people need, and I can figure out, and, you know, finances at the time will allow it, I'll start bringing that in. I don't want to be jack of all trades and good at nothing, but I do want to make sure people can get what works for them if the demand is enough.
Yeah. And I think if you offer the broader range, then I'm a firm believer that this hobby is one of the few that allows you to expand. If I'm doing a cross stitcher, I can go try something else and I might like it. And you know, if the shop happens to offer enough to get me started, then so much the better.
Yep. And a majority of our folks who do the counted canvas needlepoint are avid cross stitchers. Mm-hmm. So they just kind of go back and forth between.
Right.
So
counting is counting. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. I never understand that the whole needlepoint is my origins. And it frustrates me and makes me shake my head that there's often such a clear separation between the painted canvas and the counted canvas or counted canvas people. Because those painted canvas shops, I mean, it's like to walk in there and say counted canvas, like, no, why would I do that? And it's strange because it's the same threads, the same 18 count canvas for the most part, and you're just doing different things, and stitches are all the same. So I've never understood that. There's a dynamic there that I just don't understand. But and I love the counted stuff. That's what I love. I don't get excited about painted, but then the people who do that, that's all the only interest they have is painted, and boy, some of them are really good at it. So,
well, it is such an expensive art form to get into.
Yes.
And as a shop, for me, not knowing that genre to start buying painted just wouldn't do well. But one of our vendors is Florida Paris, out in California, and they have a huge selection of painted canvas. So we have talked at the shop about starting to offer that online as special orders. That if you want it, we will certainly get it for you. It's not something we'll stock, but we will order it and get it to you. And I've mentioned that to the folks who are locals as well, that we can kind of get a lot of stuff. I just need to know it's not always going to carry it.
Right.
But so, yeah, we're considering kind of adding that to our online offerings, to maybe kind of build that piece and see where it takes us.
Yeah, there's an inventory challenge right there if you start carrying painted canvas.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you could build up quite a bit that doesn't move. And
that's been the challenge with trying to figure out what to carry as a new shop, period, even with cross-stitch charts. I partly, I think, because we are such a tourist destination, we get a little bit of everybody coming in. So I can't necessarily say we're very sampler based or we're very tiny, it's kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And maybe I won't know what our main base is for a couple of years. Who knows? So right now, I remember early on, I reached out to Teresa Vanette and said, can you kind of be my shop buddy if I can call you on a time to time and just ask questions? And she's like, absolutely. So I remember I asked her, I said, how do I know kind of even what's the quantity to start? She said, you know what? It should make you smile, even if you don't want to stitch it yourself, and get 3, see where it goes, So that's kind of what I've been doing. I can hear her
just do it. Yeah. Just get 3. You'll be fine.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I do, and then there's that question in my head of, okay, so the 3 sold, do I get more or do I latch onto this new thing over here?
Right.
Because right now, money is finite until I win the lottery or this super takes off.
Right.
So we have to kind of make decisions on what we want to get. But yeah, so it's been interesting to kind of figure this out. It's kind of a game.
Yeah, well, and you're opening a shop especially for cross stitch at a very exciting time. There's so much activity, so many designers doing really, I think a lot of it is just really creative and innovative designs. And there's just so much of it. And then you tack onto that the high level of activity in the sampler world. And yeah, I can see from your perspective, what do I carry? You could just drive yourself crazy chasing the next shiny thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I've kind of come to a bit of a conclusion, and as a woman, I reserve the right to change my mind in 5 minutes, but that, everybody's going to have hands-on design. We're all going to have these big major designers in our shops. That's kind of a given.
Right.
But I really like helping the little guy.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to see who on Etsy isn't selling wholesale that has amazing stuff that never thought about it. Well, let's talk.
Mm-hmm.
Let me help get you exposure.
Yep.
Because I think Etsy is just this huge marketplace out there that's got all this stuff that I'm like, if we could bring it to the folks that are used to kind of going to online shops or in the physical space, I'd really would love to do that. I think technology is really cool right now in that And that's one of the reasons I want to kind of call it a boutique as well, in that I'm trying to incorporate technology into this. A lot of shops, and it's very effective, have a lot of models. Well, I don't. I'm kind of new and starting out. And if I'm not going to keep reordering things, then I don't want to have a model on the wall that I don't have on hand, because that frustrates me as a customer.
Right.
So then, do I have models at all? So what I'd like to do, it's kind of my next step, is I want to bring in some small televisions over the pattern areas. And, you can hook USB drives into these and say, okay, this is what's new. This is kind of what's in here. Because a lot of times the photography from the online images from vendors and designers is way better than sometimes what you get actually on the pattern.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no doubt about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd like to kind of, let's try that and see if that appeals to the younger generation. Maybe mix this up a little bit. But with technology, as far as downloading PDFs, well, maybe I can work with a designer on Etsy who's willing to give me a wholesale link, and every time I download it and print it for a customer, that's what I'm paying them.
Mm-hmm.
So that I help get them into a shop.
Yep.
So just that kind of stuff is where my brain's going right now.
Yeah. Well, and I like the feel. Just all I've seen is pictures, but I like the feel of your shop. It's a real open, airy, roomy feel that a lot. I mean, most shops, and rightfully so, have walls covered with models and shelves and racks all over the place. But you seem to have, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but lots of open space. I mean, I feel like I could just come in and spread my wings, so to speak.
Yeah, it actually kind of was intentional. I kind of had this aha moment when I was in my closet at my house looking at my stash, because I had kitted a lot of it up and I'd put it in big 2-gallon Ziploc bags, and I had bought a PAX unit from IKEA, and I used pants hangers to hang the Ziploc bags in 2 different rows. So essentially my patterns were hanging.
Right.
Because then I put little sticky labels, and they were alphabetical.
Look at you being organized.
Yeah, I'm a little bit organized. If just, don't talk to anybody I know, please. I admit it. So I thought, it just makes it so much easier to find. I wonder if when we do the shop, if I could just hang the patterns. So I kind of had to let my brain figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that for me, when I go shopping, I don't, like, if I walk into a TJ Maxx, it's visually very overwhelming, just all of the color.
Yeah.
I kind of need things to be a little more grouped and a little more organized and a little less, boom, there you go.
Right.
So I knew that was going to have to work for me. I couldn't walk into my shop and not feel like I was overwhelmed visually.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we decided that most patterns come in bags anyway. We bought bags for the ones that didn't. And I, found a good deal through a, store supplier for pants hangers, for fabric. Well, then we realized pants hangers weren't going to work well for the, patterns after all, because they were bulky and took up a lot of room. So then we went to little plastic hanging tags that you can, stick on, and that worked better. So we had a few iterations of trying to make it work, and things that needed support weight, because by golly, when you get a bunch of patterns on a rod, they kind of get heavy. So at one point we heard kapoosh, and I was like, oh no. So we went back to Home Depot and we start off at square one again. So again, physics doesn't always work the way I think it should. So that's kind of why we do that. And I knew that I didn't want to have to figure out themes. So I didn't want to organize patterns by themes, because I didn't want to figure out whether it's Christmas, cats, or both. So we organize everything alphabetically by designer. So part of the challenge is when somebody comes in and goes, where's your samplers? I kind of go, okay, well.
Everywhere.
Kind of, sort of, yeah. But it's also forced us to really have to look at our patterns and know our inventory, because one young lady was wanting some patterns with squirrels. And I was like, I don't think I have but one or two that are, there's a big squirrel. But then after she left, I started seeing little squirrels all over the place. And I went, okay. So
Wait, come back here. Come back here. We got a lot
I
of
was
them.
like, look, it's right. So it's kind of, that arrangement means we have to know our inventory well, and we're getting better at that. And then we wanted it to be able to slide because as shoppers, we are used to, like when you go to the mall, you move things generally from left to right or right to left when you're shopping for clothing. So I wanted to also play in that very natural inclination that we already have when we're shopping. Mm-hmm. So that's the other reason I want to hang those. Yeah. So, and then our fabric, we also hang, because it just kind of helps, visually, I think it's stunning. Yeah. And I think you can see it. Of course, we were fortunate, if a shop already exists, it's hard to move stuff around to make something like that happen. But we had a blank canvas, and right. I knew what I wanted it to be. So, yeah. That
gives you a real advantage in that you can start from scratch. Yeah. And like people buy a shop, then they kind of have to adjust. And, and it will be interesting 2 or 3 years from now, as you grow, to see, at some point, if you're able to retain this look, or you just end up having to carry so much inventory because of demand that you might have to make some adjustments there. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how you do with that.
I know. I've had that same thought because I'm already feeling like, and because I don't visually deal with clutter well, I kind of like the open space. Right. I don't feel crowded. So it's like, okay, how do I make this work and keep my sanity and yet offer enough stuff?
Right. Yeah.
Because we're starting to build that silk line between Aversois and MPI. And it's like, okay, how are we going to make this work and not keep adding rows of, more pegboard or spinner racks that are going to spill out into the rest of the areas.
Right.
And then we're going to start doing framing. So that's going to be kind of the little front room up there behind the jewelry cases is where all the molding squares will be.
Right.
So
yeah, that becomes.
We might just need a bigger space. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. But that becomes another whole beast, the framing, because you've got to have all those corner squares and mats and all that goes with it. And then are you going to do framing in house?
So we have, again, my husband deserves a Medal of Honor. He have set up. So when we had all the inventory at the house, it was in this back room that we essentially, when we built the house, had 2 bedrooms made into one. So it was our exercise room that got used for, 6 months. And then we've been here 10 years now, and it just looks good there. So that was like the little mini shop before we got the physical place. So it has now become where he's built all these tables and the mat cutter and the frame chopper and all of that's there. So the physical act of all the cutting will be at the house. We will keep the needlework at the shop. I'll bring the completed frames and we will finish inserting and putting the backing paper on at the shop. Because I really don't want to take people's needlework home.
No, I don't think that'd be real smart. No.
No. Just not interested in doing that.
No. No.
So.
Well, that's great. So then all of that equipment can be elsewhere. Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that can get to be quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be ideal if we had the space to have it all at the shop. And maybe that's the next location, however many, I don't know that we'll be at this location forever. Who knows? It's been kind of this fun journey to figure out what all is going to happen.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you have at least a loose plan for what lies ahead, and then, you can adjust as you go. Yep. That's great. All right. We're always going to run out of time. So when you get the Fire Poppies piece finished, and we know that's going to be in the next 2 months because you've got nothing but time. Is there a place on the wall that it hangs?
It is going above the fireplace.
Okay. All right.
Yep. It's going above the fireplace. And my goal is to have it done and framed before StitchCon, which I actually have to thank you for that because I stumbled across Fiber Talk, and then you were talking about StitchCon on that particular episode, and I was like, what is StitchCon? So I found it, put my name in, and managed to get in it last year. So,
No.
so I was like, oh, tell Gary thanks for that. But yeah, I would like to finish that piece so I can get it there and kind of put it on the show off table and then bring it in.
Well, that'll be great hanging up there. That'll be a nice visual thing. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What fun for you. That's great. Boy, lots going on. Never bored, I'm sure.
Nope.
No. Well, Susan, thanks so much. This is, I just love hearing about how these shops get started and how they develop. And yay for you and your people and your husband. It's exciting to watch this go. Yay.
Well, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, well, thank you, and thanks to everybody for listening.